Today, what we want to talk to you about is becoming active participants in your own healthcare.
And why we're talking about this is something happened in our past before you were even diagnosed with cancer. It was so scary. So we had relocated out of the state, didn't know anybody, just knew one person. And he woke up one morning and just was in so much pain. And we didn't know what it was, we didn't know what was wrong. And so we contacted the doctor to get in immediately to see him. And there was no appointments available. It was going to be, 2 weeks, 3 weeks, whatever. And it's like, no, this is bad. So then we called a friend of ours that works in the healthcare industry. And she said, oh, no, 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 that's not going to work. You need to be your own advocate for your own healthcare. And own your healthcare is what she said. She said, no one else is going to own it like you do. And so I said, well, what do you mean by that? And she goes, well, do you need to be seen right away? And I said, yes, he needs to be seen right away. I mean, he's like freaked out. And what was happening was we didn't know at the time, but you had a hernia. And so part of his insides were outside. It was kind of gross. I mean, let me tell you. And we didn't take any pictures, just so you know. And we're not going to share those. And so he was scared. And I was scared. And so she told us what to do. She said, you need to call them back and say, this is not acceptable.
This is impacting my quality of
life.
This
is impacting my husband's quality of life. And I'm afraid he's not going to be able to sleep. He's so worried. Boom. Those were some really key words for the medical team because they get a little concerned when you say things like that.
Well, and we also let them know that we're willing to work with them. We had multiple offices in the area.
Yeah.
They had multiple offices.
We would go anywhere. We didn't care. And so we got in, wasn't it the same day?
No, it was the same day.
I think it was the same day. Okay. It was like we hopped in the car and went, and it turns out he had a double hernia. So that was really crazy. But from that moment on, in anything we've ever came across with our healthcare, we've always said, you know what, we have to own it. And what I mean by that is, like when sometimes you go to the doctor and they say, oh, this is what it is, and you're in your gut, it's not right. Well, you need to speak up because it's your body. So that's one of the things we'll never forget. We call that Cindy's advice.
Right. And I think that, again, that was back before cancer.
Yeah.
But I think it really became even more meaningful as we went down, through the cancer battle, down the cancer pathway, and really helped us just feel in much more control, and ultimately, actively participating, actively engaged, so that we knew what was going on.
Well, and also, just to make things a little bit more complicated, we were in California at the time that he was diagnosed. Then, not a few years later, we moved, or maybe a year later, we moved to Washington State, back where we are from. And so each place involves new doctors. It involves new conversations. It involves sharing and making sure that you work with them. They don't know anything about you. They only know what you tell them and things that they can discover. That's it. So it's really important there's no stupid questions, and sharing is caring.
So I remember in the early days after diagnosis, we had received the heads up that I may have cancer, that I probably had cancer. And then one of the first appointments, we were sitting down with the person that would be my surgeon. And he started talking to us and explaining what they knew at that point about my cancer situation, what they were hoping to learn through the next set of surgeries and appointments and imaging, and just really helping me understand the near-term vision of what was about to happen. I remember sitting in those first appointments and just being
gobsmacked,
overwhelmed.
Yeah.
Just, I was glad that we had caught it when we did. I was glad that I had a person that I felt was was a high quality person, a
Mm-hmm.
capable person.
Mm-hmm.
But one of the things that we found during those appointments is that a lot of them, even if they have a great bedside manner, they still talk doctorese. They
Mm-hmm.
talk medical lingo that was completely foreign to us.
Mm-hmm.
It was like
Another language.
another language.
Yeah,
Yeah, it
another
was
language.
helping to understand. And so I guess that at that point we realized there was a lot about what we were going through that we simply didn't know.
Mm-hmm.
Um, as we thought through that, as we worked through that, we did decide to do some studying. We did decide to
Look up some of the words.
look up some of the terms,
Mm-hmm.
read things, but also
Mm-hmm.
ask the doctor, what was going on. We were paying a doctor to be the doctor.
Mm-hmm.
We just needed to know enough and feel confident enough to stop the doctor when he said something that we didn't understand,
Mm-hmm.
that wasn't clear to us,
Mm-hmm.
or triggered another thought,
Or another
another question,
question.
a concern that
Mm-hmm.
they might not know
If you
unless
didn't
we spoke
spoke
up
up,
and said
yeah,
something.
yeah,
And so I think that was the biggest thing, is we didn't need to become doctors.
no. So one of the things that I will never forget is my mom is a believer, and like many people, I mean, there's many people that believe this way. Whatever the doctor says, that's what's happening. And even if she was in the doctor appointment and the doctor said blah 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 blah, if she didn't understand it, she'd nod her head and then she'd come back. And so I would ask her, "Hey, mom, so what did the doctor say?" Well, and then she'd come off with something that made no sense. So then I'd look at the record and I'd say, "Well, if you didn't understand it, why didn't you ask?" And she goes, "What?" So then I went to the next appointment with her, and I was asking so many questions. My mom was getting a little bit nervous because, in her mind, the doctor is be all, end all. That's it. But we did learn a lot, and she learned that it's okay to ask questions. I wasn't being rude, and I wasn't. I was just trying to clarify and understand so that I could help my mom.
So again, doctors have their expertise. Doctors are critical through this whole process. They're going to be the person that's ultimately in charge of the
Mm-hmm.
care that you get.
Mm-hmm.
But it's important to view it as a partnership and share your questions, your values, your expectations, your
worries,
lifestyle,
your
your
worries.
worries, so that they can take those into consideration and either, share information that will help you through those things, or maybe even adapt the care based on what it is you want,
Or
need,
your
or expect.
concerns are. Yeah.
Absolutely. So participation, or what participation looks like. Some of the things that we learned were, for me, having someone else with me that was another set of ears, another set of eyes sometimes, to
And writing
understand
things
what was
down.
going, writing things down.
Mm-hmm.
I think a lot of times we decided that I would actively listen,
Mm-hmm.
and you would capture the notes.
Mm-hmm. That
And
is how we did it.
us, yep, between us, that way we knew we had all of our bases covered.
Right.
Also, one of the practices that I got, or one of the things that I made a practice, was as we're coming up to an appointment, I know we're going to meet with the doctor, I would open my calendar reminder for that. And in the notes section, I would put questions or comments or things that I felt were important to either share with the doctor or ask the doctor while we were there, so we could really make the most out of those conversations.
Mm-hmm.
Sometimes we were fortunate. Our doctors generally, gave us the time we needed. We certainly weren't going to get all day with them,
Sure.
but they're sensitive to the fact that you have a potentially life-threatening situation, and they would take the time.
Mm-hmm.
But we also wanted to be respectful of their time and make sure that we did come into that appointment prepared, that we knew what we wanted to cover.
Mm-hmm. And that's really critical, because if you're sitting in the doctor appointment and you're going, huh, I knew I had a question.
What
And
was it?
what was it? And you're just now wasting his time, her time, and your time. It just is really not beneficial, and you feel less confident.
So as far as building our confidence, one of the things we did is before appointments, we would do research.
Mm-hmm.
We use the internet. We talked about Dr. Google, and a lot of doctors will push back on that. And yet the reality of life today is that we do turn to the internet for so much.
Mm-hmm.
And so we did do a lot of research on the internet. One of the things, though, that became really clear to us
Quickly,
quickly
quickly.
is there is no shortage of information out there.
Mm-hmm.
What became really important is sifting through and figuring out what information could you trust
Mm-hmm. Absolutely.
and what information did you need to kind of question.
Mm-hmm.
And for us, we chose to focus on the large medical organizations,
Mm-hmm.
the Mayos, the um, the large, respected, well-known names in the country to look for information because, again, we knew that that was their foundation was in research. Their
Mm-hmm.
foundation was, that they had the expertise to talk about it. Not that we couldn't or shouldn't look at other approaches, other complementary or sometimes alternative type medicines. But what became important to us was really considering the source and then figuring out what felt right to us. What was the right answer for us?
Mm-hmm.
We've talked earlier about how everybody follows a different path. Same with research. But again, for us, we chose
Science.
science. We chose to trust the experts.
Mm-hmm.
Um, we never expected to learn everything about medicine.
Because it changes daily.
It does. There's so many advances, but
Mm-hmm.
also, that's your doctor's job. That's why you have the professionals. That's
Mm-hmm.
why you have a medical team that you can rely on to help guide um, the path from a medical perspective. We just needed to learn enough to feel confident talking with the doctor, to ask questions that made sense, to ask questions that got us to a level of understanding that, that, that made us feel good about the situation, that gave us the
I think
confidence.
I think we asked questions that would help answer what we needed.
Yeah.
For example, I always say there's no stupid question, but kind of there is. And what I mean by that is if you're asking questions that doesn't really pertain to the situation you're involved in,
That's true.
who cares? That's really nice, but don't go on and squirrel. Just try really hard to stay focused on your own situation and what you're dealing with, and ask those questions that you know are going to help you get to the next step.
I think the important realization for us was that it was our team, that they had our best interest at heart. But in order for it to really hum, to really work, we needed to view it as a true partnership.
Mm-hmm.
And by partnership, I mean, again, trusting their knowledge and expertise, but also being willing to question if we
Mm-hmm.
didn't understand,
Mm-hmm.
or if we felt there might be a different approach based on our own research, asking about that, getting their perspective, getting their insights. Really, it's about having a conversation,
Mm-hmm.
about taking the time to really understand what your options are, and then ultimately making the choices that make sense for you. Those words that Cindy shared with us so many years ago really ended up playing an important role in my cancer battle, our
Yes.
cancer battle.
Yes.
She helped us understand that, in fact, we do need to own our own health care, that we do need to be active participants in our own health care, and that ultimately we're always going to be our own best advocates.